You're watching Captains of Industry here on CNBC Africa, and I'm chatting to Mike Wylie, the chairman of WBHO. Thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure.
We're having a tough time in the media industry right now, and I had some time to obviously research ahead of this interview, Mike, and I think it's fair to say that you're probably having a tougher time in the construction industry, and it has been tough for some time. How are you feeling at the moment?
Bronwyn, yes, it is tough. I think I'm feeling reasonably relaxed because, you know, WBHO is a very strong company in terms of its staff and the people that run it. That we've been through tough times before, and we've got a very good tried and tested team that I wouldn't want to go into these times without. And hopefully, one of the big reasons for the downturn is the lack of government spending, and obviously the drop-off in the resource prices and the work in Africa that we thought was coming through, the work in Australia that has dropped off on the resource side.
Well, let's pause there and tackle each of these elements in sort of order of magnitude, and let's talk about the government spending, that 800 billion rand that hasn't come to fruition. And you'll have seen the comments recently by Neville Nicolau, the relatively new CEO of Basil Reed, saying, making very strong statements, and in fact saying that there's an immature relationship between government and business, and this is why we aren't seeing that 800 billion rand coming to fruition from an expenditure perspective. Do you agree with his statements?
I don't think there is. I think that this is a fantastic industry. I really do think that under all the noise, government appreciate what a good industry this is. You know, I think if you look just back on the infrastructure that's been delivered over the years, it's been delivered at below world-class prices and delivered on time to the right quality, whether you're talking about airports or roads or stadiums or whatever it is. So we have a wonderful industry, great universities, great consulting engineers, great contractors, and they've all worked fantastically well together for the past 40 years in putting South Africa where it is. And I think that I really do hope that will continue. We certainly have had our problems and with the competition issues, which has caused government to be quite rightly disappointed with us and a lack of trust. But certainly there's no lack of trust from our side, and we have engaged with the members of the PICC and the ministers on a fairly regular basis, really trying to unravel and trying to get the industry on the right course. As far as government is concerned, the right course is to make it more inclusive. In other words, just not dominated by the 4 or 5 companies that have been around for a long time. And I think all of us are working very hard on that inclusivity. In fact, just the other day, one of the companies we've been mentoring, a black woman-owned company, was awarded its grade 9 certificate, which is the highest certificate you can get on the CIDB. Another woman-owned company earlier this year was also got to grade 9. So those are big step forwards in making the industry more inclusive. So we really are committed to that, and we just hope that we can actually really get onto a sincere, genuine relationship with government.
It must be tough. It must be tough when you see the news headlines coming to fruition, and here I refer to the civil claim from the city of Cape Town, where there's alleged collusion involving WBHO on the tender for Greenpoint Stadium. You know, that's a civil claim of almost 500 million rand. What is your stance on that front? It doesn't appear to be going away, these collusion allegations.
We don't know whether it'll ever go away. I suppose it'll be tested in court eventually. But we have always said, you know, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've just said that we did not inflate that price. We did not allocate the stadiums. We did not agree a price beforehand. And unfortunately, that has been it's been put in the press so often, almost the perception that occurred has now almost become reality, but it's not reality. So we believe we'll defend our case there, and that's why we haven't provided for it.
You bring up an interesting point. How do you feel about the press? How did you feel ahead of my interview? Do you see us as the bad guys? Are we making life difficult for you?
Look, I suppose the press always want to have a more sensationalist aspect to their for their readers, to make sure that their readers. So I've sort of learnt that, and so we are a little bit skeptical about what we read, because sometimes the truth and the realities are a bit more boring than, you know, all these sensational or fairly sensational articles that appear. So Bronwyn, we've had to live with that, and you know, I think, as you know, WBHO always like to keep a fairly low profile anyway. So and really we work hard here. We really haven't got time for you know, all this sort of conjecturing and whatever. So yeah, the press is what it is, you know, and guys have got to get your job done. So I think we understand that.
Well, thank you for having this discussion with me. I want to go back to an interview that you did with Alec in 2011. Alec Hogg and at the time he was at MoneyWeb on a program called Upper Echelon for his radio program. And I was reading about your philosophy, and one of the issues that came to light was that you came out of university, you started working, you know, basically it wasn't WBHO then, but after a merger it became, you stayed in the job, the same job, for your whole life. And that's a philosophy that a lot of your directors have adopted. Long service seems to be one of the underpinning values of WBHO.
Yes, I think, I suppose because of my situation, and it's been successful for me, and I've seen the benefit of it, and I've seen how other companies have failed because of lack of it, is that management continuity is crucial, especially in a construction company where we deal, you know, we're not a production factory line. We don't build the same thing over. Every job we get is a brand new job with new risks in a different place. And we have to deal with all these different contracts all the time. So unless you've got huge corporate memory and experience,
the history is so important.
The history is so important because you learn from that history, and from the mistakes you've made or the good things you've done over years, you put that into your business plans going forward. So I last month in March was my 40th year with the company, and I really am, you know, busy retiring at the moment, but again, because of that management continuity and the relationships we had with our staff, you know, because we've all been together in that sort of lifelong careers, we don't just lock our door and put the keys on the desk and the next guy takes over. You know, it's like a dimmer switch. I'm gradually turning off, and it's you know, and because of these challenging times, I may be sticking around a little bit longer than I might have, but I've got a wonderful team here who have had a lifetime in this company.
And that's important. So perhaps you can share with other CEOs the secret to retaining talent in tough environments. What is the secret to your success on that front?
I think when I look back on it, we were very careful in who we employed, especially with the view on future management. So we carefully selected the right person, and construction needs a combination of, you need to have clever guys, good with numbers, good math, science, all that sort of thing, and strong people, knowing, you know, really being strong in themselves, but never arrogant and never bullying or never, you know, driving fancy cars and all that. Really, we want feet on the ground type people. And those people are not easy to find, but we sort of knew where to look for them. Right from, you know, we look at what their parents did, what schools they went to. And I think we made some really good selections, maybe 10, 15 guys who are still with us. And they are all just in that same mold, that they're smart, but they don't push. The clients love them. We often say sorry when it's not even our fault. Because at the end of the day, we're building these massive assets for these clients, and they get pretty, you know, the clients get under a lot of pressure with what they have to deliver, and we just have to make sure that we understand their pressures, so that when we hand over a building, it must be on time, it must be in budget, it must be to the right quality standards, and whether it's a building or a road or whatever it is. So our work, fortunately, is very real. You know, there's a beginning and there's an end, and the way you've worked and how well you've worked is very easy to see. And but it's very hard work as well. So sticking together as a team like this, and that the key to it, Bronwyn, is When you do all these things, you're looking at career paths all the time. So you, before this guy even knows about, he's even thought about his own career path, you're watching how's he going to go, how are you going to structure the company to make sure you don't lose him, to make sure that you fulfill his aspirations. So it becomes a very thing that you don't, as a senior manager, you don't worry about yourself. You end up worrying about them all the time.
And their
they
growth trajectory.
And the growth will just come back, your benefits will come to yourself without you having to worry about yourself. You've got to worry about these guys below you to make sure that they receive the right career path, the right training, the right whatever it is that'll get them to have the smooth transition now, which I'm having, and as a lot of us are having, because the years go by so quickly. And, we all get to 60 in no time. We can't believe it. Here we are. I'm 65. I can't believe it.
Well, let's talk a bit about the success of the company that you have been building over your lifetime. We've gone from a market cap right about 1 billion rand to 8 billion rand today. You outrank the likes of Murray and Roberts. Did you expect that to happen in your lifetime?
We never set ourselves targets. I remember a few of our competitors at some stage were saying we're going to get to 1 billion rand turnover in the next 2 years, or 2 billion rand turnover. And we never did that. We just made sure that we had the right people in place, and that we were fulfilling their aspirations, as I said, and that we were really doing a good job for our clients. So we never had these big targets, and we never had 5-year plans. We just allowed the thing to grow.
Did you think you would see 8 billion?
And it was, and that's after we've sort of peaked. We were up at 10 billion at one point, but we're at 8 billion, and that is just amazing. So it is very satisfying for me to see that. It's a good time for me to be now moving on into my retirement, having achieved that. And I think especially having the biggest market cap in South Africa. I mean, that to me, I didn't think would ever happen, So I think one can look back on that satisfyingly, in that the principles that you ran the company on were the right ones, because they've led to that success.
Let's talk about the cycle that you are in right now. And in your opening statements, you spoke about the pressures, obviously the lack of the government infrastructure spend coming to fruition, and then the resource cycle and what we're seeing on resource prices and how that is impacting you. That must be an area of concern. But again, it is cyclical.
Yes. So, I think, and Australia now, we went, just by the by, we went to Australia in 1999 thinking we should try and get a company with a harder currency, and that would be good for the shareholders at the end of the day. And we bought into a company called ProBuild, and that was 16 years ago. And we always thought Australia, was the strength of Australia was going to be the resources, because they were providing all the minerals to China's growth. And it certainly did appear that way, but now that's just been turned off. And
you had a very tough 6 months.
And that really gave us, just this last 6 months, it was really very painful, because we'd spent such a lot of time building that business. Now we have to start cutting back. But it's amazing how Australia is such a good country that now that work is almost being replaced by the Asian influence, because the Asians are investing hugely in residential commercial, and that side of the business is doing far better than we thought. So we're still happy to be Australia. We're still happy to be Australia, because that has really surprised us. And then Africa is also, because of the resource prices dropping, and China's the demand not being there from Asian countries. So a lot of the mining work and a lot of the projects that we were involved in Africa have not come to fruition. And there's a lot of other work in Africa which we're looking at. So Africa is very important, but it's been disappointing for the last couple of years.
One of the strongest signals to the market that you are in a very tough period was the cutting of your dividend when you announced your 6 months results, 24th of February 2015, just a month ago. That's the first time you've done this.
Yeah, so we've always had generally we've always increased our dividend. I mean, for the last 15 years, we've always done better than the previous year.
Which shareholders have celebrated.
Yeah, and but these are difficult times we're entering into. So, and I think with this knock on the civil side in Australia, we really felt that we didn't want to pretend to the shareholders that everything was absolutely perfect and this was just a little hiccup. Because until we really understand when this resource cycle is going to improve, when the work in Africa will improve, and when the work in South Africa will improve, we really don't have the confidence to say we are going to carry on. And I think
you need cash. It's about a war chest.
It's not so much cash, but it's just saying to the shareholders, because I think that the difference in cash is not all that much in that dividend drop we did say. But I think it's just saying to the shareholders that this is the way we feel. We really want more certainty in the next few years before we can say things are going to be as good as they have been, and surely that's reflected in the dividend. So, and it's an interim dividend, as you know, and so I would hope we might even be back on track, with the full dividend, but certainly not if we don't feel confident.
But you're not committing to that full dividend at this stage. It's still very much a wait and see. You don't have that visibility yet.
Yeah, and only if we feel really confident will we do that, and I think the shareholders will appreciate that.
Coming out of 2010, everyone, as far as discussions on the investment side have been taking place, it's about the glut that we saw in construction, and that has done the damage to the industry that we're seeing right now. Is that an unfair criticism?
I think when I look at the industry as a whole, I think so, because the other companies have really taken, I think, a bit more strain than we've taken, looking at share prices and market caps and that sort of thing. But there's a huge amount of private sector work going on, which we've never been this busy, but on the civil side, on the road side, yes, I think not having further expansions at OR Tambo Airport, which were mooted at the time, that's a pity. And some of those big civil projects that we enjoyed in those times, and I think those are the things that haven't been replaced, because one can't be too critical of government for it, because government are putting an enormous amount of money into Eskom, and which is around boilers and things like that don't help us. And then of course Transnet, which is about railway locomotives and coaches, which also don't help us. So government is spending, but they're just not spending
in an arena that's going to benefit construction.
And hopefully once the Medupi-Kusile things are behind them, and once the Transnet, they've got enough coaches, now they've got to start building the railway lines, then we're back in business. So so hopefully it is, as you said earlier, it's cyclical.
Let's touch on the renewable energy opportunity. You're basically looking at models there where you are partnering, JVs in that space. So it's not right at the heart of your business, is it?
It's not. It's more about EPC contracts, partnering, taking risk, using your balance sheet. And so we can only do so much of that. But we really think that we will obviously continue with it, and we'll be doing more. We've just finished that Katu, which is a solar, 85 megawatt solar plant, which is one of the biggest around. And that's been a great success. It's meeting all the targets, the electricity is flowing out of it, so that's wonderful. We're doing a gas turbine plant just in Mozambique I think it's going to get to 200 megawatts, but it's 100 megawatts at the moment, which is the first one outside South Africa, and it's a gas plant, so Eskom are very interested in that. So,
do you believe that that's going to be a growth area for the industry?
Yes, definitely. And you've got all the these projects still coming, the different stages of the projects. I think there's hydro coming, and there's more wind farms, and there's more. So that's going to keep going. But remember, our portion of construction in those is actually quite small. So it's not going to save us, but it's very useful. And because we take risk on our balance sheet, we can make a little bit extra profit on those jobs. So it's very much part of our business, but it's not going to, we certainly would still want to see the genuine, straightforward infrastructure that we depend on.
Are you excited about Africa as an opportunity? You mentioned that obviously the resource price, the fall in resource prices has impacted your work in those territories, but when we see that recovery, whether it's the demand-supply equation that just comes back in line, do you see that Africa will, or do you believe that Africa will be a big part of WBHO's story going forward?
It never has up to now. It's been maybe 25% of our business, 30% of our business. We would certainly like to, keep it at that level because it's dropped back now with the drop-off in work. But there's another dynamic coming into Africa in that there's quite a lot of other ways of funding things, like private equity funding, and there's a lot of things going on, and we certainly are going to be following those things. We've got a good reputation, so people like to work with us. They like our balance sheet, and so it's not going to just all be mining that we're going to be involved in, and we're hoping that there's going to be quite a lot of other industries that are going to get built up and being funded by other countries that see that growth in Africa. So we're still not too dependent on the governments in Africa because that still is a little bit risky for us, but we're hoping that with all our knowledge on these EPCs and partnering, that if we really are thinking out of the box, we can do well in Africa and try and get it up to that 30-40% level.
We chatted about Eskom and obviously the renewable solutions that you have been partnering in creating, whether it's solar or gas in the Mozambique environment. How's Eskom and the troubles that company has had, how has that impacted your business? How's Eskom impacted your business?
Well, look, Eskom's important for us because I'm not thinking about power outages because that's an irritation. But being contractors, we can overcome that, But really, Eskom's been very important to us because we've been building Kusile, So it's been a fantastic contract. I think it's gone very well, and our civil works are just about finished there. We've got through some tough times on the labour side, on the budgeting side, and I think we've really worked well with that team from Eskom, and we hope Kusile will be coming online. We don't have any control further, but we hope it's going to come online a bit earlier than the dates that have been given because our work has gone pretty well there. So we're very grateful for Eskom for that, and but I think again it's a bit maybe like the airports. We can't expect too much more from Eskom now because they've certainly got to consolidate what they've got. All these renewables have been done through the Department of Energy, which is a good thing. So that's separately funded, and so let's just hope maybe other things like, the airports when they finish, we built King Shaka, we did OR Tambo, we didn't, but our industry extended Cape Town, and that sorted out the airports company for a while, but hopefully that'll start coming in again. And, hopefully the roads, and, I think a worry for us is SANRAL because, we think SANRAL is such a great organization, and it's just a pity the e-tolls are causing a problem with their funding now. And we hope that gets overcome because that's also a big important part of the work. But I think that's not going to come right anytime soon, so we just got to be a bit patient there. But I hope everybody just appreciates what a good institution SANRAL is and what good they've done for the country.
Mike, you spoke about the handover process that you are currently pursuing with your team, and that it's probably going to take longer than you initially thought just because of the trouble in the construction space. How long do you think it's going to take to see your way clear here and to confidently hand over to your team?
Yeah, look, I mean, I really have, I would say 80% I've handed over. So I'm just here to see through the competition issues. I'm here to give advice, and I'm busy handing over Australia. So I think the company has just grown so much. I can't tell exactly, but I think we're going to be turning over about 27 billion. Which I can't even believe we're doing that sort of work. And I think if you look at that growth, what we were in 2010, there's been enormous growth. So the company has grown, and the people are still the same. So I think we're just such a team that we just need to keep operating as a team. But I would think by the end of this year I'll be pretty close, and then certainly next year, if they want me to stay on as chairman, I'll obviously stay on as chairman. But
and what do you want to do? Are there lots of things that you've been waiting to get your hands on?
Yes, no, I've got lots and lots of things I would love to do. And this life, for myself after this, there's so many things I would like to do and have the time to do them. And I'm
to young people watching this interview who are potentially weighing up a career in the construction space, what is your advice to them in the South African and African construction space?
Look, I think the You know, the construction industry is a great industry. It's tough, it's not for sissies. You maybe won't get as well remunerated as you will in the financial services sector, but you end up being a very feet on the ground, practical person that can add value to your families and add value to so many things. And I think you become a very good person for it. And I would certainly encourage people to go into it, but just know that they've got to work hard, they've got to travel, but it's so interesting and it's so rewarding. And so don't shy away from it too much. And the tough times we're going through now, you know, I think it's you know, there's always these big opportunities now in tough times, so the companies will recover, and to be part of that recovery process over the next 10 years will be exciting for youngsters.
Mike, thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
I've been chatting to Mike Wylie, the chairman of WBHO. You're watching Captains on CNBC Africa.